Gilles Routhier. I'm a professor at the Faculty of Theology, Religious Studies at the University of Laval in Quebec City. I am glad to see you again and to be able to participate in this class. And what I've been asked to do is to tell you in a few words about the role of bishops, the magisterium, and theologians in the context of a synodal process. I'm going to answer the question, but first of all, I want to come back to the fact that the general principle of synodal life is that every baptized person must be able to actively participate in the process. Before naming any actor, we must establish this principle. Synodal life is the business of the whole people of God. It is the whole ecclesial body that is called to be active then. Then there is not this ecclesia docens, a church that teaches either through her magisterium or through her theologians, the pastoral magisterium and the doctoral magisterium. But it is the whole church that is called to participate. If the church is a body, as the Apostle Paul says in the first letter to the Corinthians in chapter 12, there are no useless limbs in the body and no limbs. For example, the eye can say to the hand, I don't need you. No member is considered useless. The body needs all its members. It's like in the liturgy, one presides, several other members have special duties, the lectors, the choir, the acolytes, the deacon, and everyone is called to participate. And this figure of the church that is realized in the liturgy, which is, as we know, synaxis, the ergon, which is an activity, latus ergon, the activity of people. In the same way, in synodal life, we move from synaxis to synods. In the synod too, everyone is called to participate. But this participation, as in the liturgy, the body is organized. The people in itself is organized. Everyone's participation is differentiated. And we are going to find the same elements. One, the presiding chair. Everyone is called to participate, and some of them have special functions. Now that I have established this basic principle, I can, and only after I have established it, can I answer the question, what is the particular and specific role of bishops? And what is also the special role of theologians? Each, of course, the one and the other have specific functions. traditionally, and it has been stated for a long time, we are going to say in a council, and I think in an ecumenical council, but this is also true in synodal life. Bishops are, and we have two expressions to say, they are witnesses of the faith, testes fidei, and judices fidei, they are judges of the faith. These are two specific roles that they possess. They don't do everything, but when we say they are witnesses of faith, they are witnesses of the faith of their church. The bishop, in a way, is a corporate personality. He is not expressing his own opinion, but that of the assembly. In the assembly, he witnessed to the faith of his church and of his word, including his own word, the word of his church. As Ignatius of Antioch said when he met so-and-so, I got to know his church. He bears witness to the faith that his church carries, and not just the one who informs or expresses his personal opinion. And having listened, having heard a difficult question or a question that divides, a delicate subject that divides, he then is the judge of faith. At the end of the assembly's discernment, he is judging the faith. The bishop, at the same time, as the Apostle Paul also says, is the union between his local church, to whose faith he bear witness. He is at the confluence of other churches who he is also listening to. The testimony of the faith that comes from other churches. And also, this time in a diachronic way, of what comes from further away than him, of what comes before him, which is the faith of the apostles and the great tradition. And anyway, he is listening to the signs of the times, the interpellations of the present time. So one could say that the bishop, his first role is to listen. Listen to the faith of his church, listen to the testimonies of faith from other churches, listening to the signs of the times and the challenges of the present time, and listen to what's coming from the apostles. And it is only after he has heard correctly that he can be a judge of faith. Judices fidei. His role, that of a judge of faith, can only be exercised if he has heard well, and the discernment he is going to carry out. Is the faith that comes from my church confronted at the same time with what the other churches testify? Is it really then the faith that comes from the apostles? It's not just a faith-keeping role, but also an innovative role, because history attests to that. It has often happened that in councils there are bishops who move the church forward to reformulate her own faith, to update the current situation. But this is because he listened what comes from the present times, what comes from other churches, what comes from his church, and what comes from the apostles. Occasionally, he has the function of defining, but at times, the Second Vatican Council, for example, did not carry a definition. Sometimes he is asked to decide, to be an arbiter, but that can only be done once he has discerned, and this discernment comes first and foremost from listening and pleading to the Holy Spirit. This is for the bishop. Now the theologians. Theologians are part of the people of God. Consequently, we are not surprised that they have a role. Theologians cannot be marginalized or prevented from speaking. They have a role to play. And their role, if theology is the understanding of faith, they have a special function. It is not exclusive, but this role is entrusted to them in a special way. Their function is to make intelligible the faith that is always alive, the faith that comes from the apostles in the present situation, the present context. And they are particularly in dialogue with culture, also with the sciences, which question the Christian cross again and again. The cultural situation, the situation of the world, asks new questions of Christian history. And their function is to work in the language of faith, in the expression of faith, if it is to be accepted. If we see, if we will, that this faith proclaimed not in an archaic language, but in a language that can speak to men, women, children of this century, work for the expression of faith. Second, to help situate what comes from the apostles in today's debate, not just repeating and telling us what comes from the apostles, but inscribing, situating, integrating into today's language. And this is a work of hermeneutical interpretation if we want to be able to integrate this. So it is to inscribe the Christian tradition in the present, in the culture, in the history of today. This is the special role of theology. There is an article after the Second Vatican Council that was published in the magazine Gregorianum, where theologians, the engineers of the Second Vatican Council, they are not just simply engineers, and do not have to impose their own ideas. They have to listen to the culture, the questions that come from science, the faith of always, and inscribe it in a new language. They are not those who direct synodal activity. They are those who accompany it, those who work with the people of God and all its members, and with the magisterium. It is a work of accompaniment and not of direction. Here, then, in a nutshell, the special role of theologians and bishops. Specific, but not exclusive roles. Their proper role must be linked to the participation of all, and their own role, far from overwhelming the participation of others, most promote it, most allow it. I hope this presentation has been somewhat enlightening for you. I wish you a good course and success.